Hello, this is Danielle Cooperstock, and this is my presentation about a social emotional approach for a school. To begin, we'll start with a summer professional development that teachers will receive prior to the school year actually beginning. So this will be a time when all of the teachers and staff members of the school, including administrators, will all be together and they will work on a personal reflection, meaning that the teachers will explore their own socially constructed identity to learn how it intersects to give them the privileges and oppression that they experience on their daily basis. Through this personal reflection will help them understand about their identity and how it relates to their students' identities, but also how certain privileges or oppressions that they experience are similar or different to the privileges and oppressions that their students have based upon their own identities. This will also help teachers work on their personal mastery. This will be where teachers will create their personal vision that will drive their own purpose for teaching to help them really understand why they go to school every day, that they can revisit this personal mastery throughout the school year. The whole entire school will also work on team learning. So this is going to be collective to create a vision for why every single individual is at that school and why they do what they do on a daily basis. This will help drive what they do as their school and for their whole community. To build off that summer professional development, there's some action items that teachers will work on. First, before the school year begins, they'll learn about brain development and how behavioral circuits are created, as well as how traumatic and positive experiences and relationships can influence those behavioral circuits. So we'll help them really dig deep into how their students or what their students have experienced prior to going into that school year and like how that has shaped the behaviors that they have and the relationships that they build. Teachers will also create a welcome letter for families that includes the created team learning vision that the whole entire school worked on that they can distribute during school enrollment. So when parents and students are enrolling students in the school, they understand why their teachers are there on a daily basis and why they do what they do. Teachers will also create 2 questionnaires, one that they will give to families and one that they will give to students so that the teachers can learn more about the family and student aspirations, linguistics, family, social skills, emotion understanding, and emotion regulation. This will really help the school understand like what they can do to best support, reach, and interact with students and families. They will also integrate aspects of the questionnaire into all lessons that they teach. So when they are working with their students, they are being culturally responsive and are doing so in a way that is relevant to their students. Another summer professional development that the entire school will receive will be about restorative justice as a social emotional means of consequences. So it's for both positive and for negative consequences. The first thing that teachers are going to learn is how the school to prison pipeline is created and how it can be impacted by suspensions. I really feel if a school is trying to move away from suspensions, they need to understand why. And so this would really give them that understanding. Teachers will also learn about the practices of facilitating a peacemaking circle or a morning meeting, which will be expected to facilitate. They will be expected to facilitate every morning with their homeroom. I'll explain more about that in a little bit. But this is a restorative justice practice that can be a practice that's used to prevent any need for further consequences that are negative. Also, staff will learn about restorative justice consequence ladder that will emphasize consequences that restore the harm caused and allow for the community to be restored. So in order for restorative justice to really be impactful, teachers need to be bought in. And so they really need to understand like what that ladder looks like, but also like what it looks like to have these conversations and how that really can restore harm in a community and potentially prevent further harm from being caused. So what will also occur during the summer is there will be the creation of this restorative justice team. These are people who really oversee all of that work that I was just talking about and ensure that's being enacted. But these are going to be individuals who are not teachers. So these are individuals who support the restorative needs of the community. So there will be at least one individual assigned to each grade level to support in the moment restorative justice conversations with students while teaching has occurred. This will support students' social emotional learning in the moment. Because if it's during class and there's 30 other students who are learning, the teacher may stop to address it briefly, but that won't really do enough for that one student who really needs more in-depth reflection. So this restorative justice team will provide them with that in-depth reflection to really comprehend what happened, why it happened, but like what they can do going forward. So this restorative justice team will also facilitate peace circles to restore harm if it's ever caused. They will also be responsible to communicate with families about restorative justice concerns and situations with students. This will provide a lot of consistency to families, so they will know who they're talking to each time that there is any kind of behavioral concern with their child, but also allow that relationship to be built with teachers for academics and social emotional needs, but also like this is a group of professional and trained individuals in this area who can facilitate those conversations if needed. So one of the first things that we talked about earlier was the first day of school morning meeting activity. Every single day, teachers will be expected to have a morning meeting or a peacemaking circle. This is just a layout for what the first day of school morning meeting will look like. And so we'll set up the expectations going throughout the year of what every single day will look like in the very morning for the morning meeting. Each homeroom can do it differently depending on what the students' needs are, who the teacher is, what's going on that day, what's unique to those kiddos. But the structure is very similar. So on the very, very first day of school, teachers will introduce the morning meetings and expectations, and those are that all students will sit in a circle where they can see everyone. Only one person will talk at a time and to speak your truth. Those are the 3 expectations. On that first day, though, teachers will ask students the same question based upon what they want to learn about their students, and all students are expected to answer. So the morning meeting will occur every morning with the same expectations, but different questions that are driven by the needs of the students. So like this is still very open-ended where like teachers can structure this first day one differently, but the really important thing about the very first day of school is that these expectations are gone over in a way that are very clear to students. And then during their very first experience with a morning meeting, that teachers are holding those expectations clear and that students are meeting those expectations. So like an example of a question that could be on the first day is, what are you most wanting to learn this school year? Or what did you do this summer? Where is your favorite place to go this summer? Who is your favorite person to hang out with this summer? What's one thing you're looking forward to learning this school year? Different things like that. But then throughout the school year, the question can be different. One that works is like, what are you grateful for today? Or what's one thing that you did last night that made you really happy? Or how are you doing today? Where would you like to vacation to sometime in the future? It's really up in the air what that question's going to be each day. And again, it needs to be very relevant to what those students are experiencing and who that teacher is, so that they're able to meet the needs of those students in that moment. So this is like a one way that homeroom can become a community and a family for each other, where they really do know each other, respect each other. They know how to speak their truth with those people, so they can always go back to them every morning, start their day off with that consistency and with that community. So the way that morning meeting is going to be assessed is by the homeroom teacher. So the person who's actually leading the homeroom morning meeting, they're going to be the person facilitating it and assessing it. So they will be assessing it based upon these 4 criteria. Does a student participate every day? If not, does a student respectfully ask not to participate and doesn't interrupt the meeting? So it is okay if a student does not want to participate. Maybe they're not having the best day. And the way for them to be responsible in meeting their needs is saying like, you know what, right now I can't participate. But as long as they're being respectful about that, they will still get full credit. However, it would be ideal for them all to participate, but again, it's based on the student's needs. The second criteria is does the student respect everyone else while they are sharing? So when somebody else is talking, are they listening to them or are they laughing at them, right? Like it's important to let people feel safe and vulnerable when they are sharing their truth, because that is a very vulnerable moment. But if someone's laughing at you, like, are you going to want to do that every day? Probably not. So that one student who is laughing shouldn't get full credit. 3, does the student participate respectfully? So when they are sharing, are they doing so respectfully, or are they making fun of their peers? Are they being a bully, or are they cussing at you a lot or cussing at each other, right? Like that's not a respectful way to participate. Again, this is kind of like up to the teacher's criteria, but it's like based upon those students. If they're all doing it together, maybe that's like the culture that they're creating in that classroom, and you have a deeper conversation with them about why they aren't all being respectful during this time. And like no one student should be penalized, but that's like a community conversation to have. The fourth criteria is, does the student dive into a deeper participation as the year progresses? It's very understandable at the very beginning of the school year for a student to not want to participate fully, right? They're like just building those relationships with the teachers and with each other. But like as the school year progresses, like are they digging deeper? Are they answering more fully? Do they seem more comfortable, more confident? Are they giving you more perspective, or are they giving you the exact same answer every day? Are they refusing to participate every day? Like these are really important things to consider. Like how has that student changed throughout the school year? So that's the first assignment that I have to help develop the social emotional learning in the school. The second assignment that I have, or second activity I have, is a reflection activity. So this is used when any harm is created for the individual who caused the harm to reflect on what happened, why it happened, how it harmed their community, and how they can restore that harm. So anytime anything happens, this is an activity that must occur. So for example, if a student bullies another peer, they have to engage in a reflection activity. If a student vandalizes a facility, they have to do a reflection activity. If a student cheats, they have to do a reflection activity. If a student walks out during class without permission and like doesn't come back, they have to do a reflection activity. And this is done with the restorative justice team or the teacher who's involved if they're available to facilitate. If this is done peer-to-peer, it will be moved to the restorative justice team unless a teacher wants to handle it. If it's done with a teacher who's involved in it, it will be up to the teacher if they're able to facilitate that conversation at the time or not. If it's done in the middle of class, the teacher's not going to be able to just walk out and have this conversation, right? Like they need to stay in the classroom, and they'll be pulled in later at a different time when they're not responsible for the learning of 30 other children. However, if this happens like among the entire classroom and like every single person in that classroom is involved, the teacher will facilitate it. So once that personal reflection is completed, where the individual who caused the harm has to reflect on what happened, why, how it harmed their community, how they can restore that harm, then a peace circle is had with those who are impacted that is facilitated by the restorative justice team or the teacher to discuss how the harm will be restored. So this individual will have to reflect by themselves. So for the examples I gave about cheating, if a student cheated, maybe they do some research about why cheating robbed them of learning and of an experience. Maybe they have to show that their knowledge for that question in a different way. If a student vandalized the bathroom, maybe a way that they restore the harm is to clean the vandalism themselves. If a student steals money, they have to give it back, but then also maybe do some research and do some more work too. Something that really restores the harm. But if a student is bullying another student, a conversation is had to facilitate why that was occurring. But also like, what does the person who's being bullied need to feel restored and feel safe in their setting again? So if further action is required, like the vandalism, the cheating, the stealing, then they need to do a project, right? Like either clean the facility, show their learning in a different way, do some research about why cheating, stealing, bullying is not beneficial to their community, what kind of harm that can really cause somebody. They will do a project that the restorative justice team and those teachers involved will oversee. So these reflection activities will be assessed by the restorative justice team, since they will oversee most of them. And they'll do this by looking like, does harm actually get restored, right? Like if there's vandalism, does the individual actually clean it up? If there's still marks on the wall, they need to do something else to really restore that harm. Another way they will assess it is, are all families involved in the restorative justice process? Do they agree with the method their child identified for restoring the harm? Like, if a child did vandalism, is the family okay with the child cleaning it up? Do they think that will help them learn a lesson? If not, like, let's bring that family in, let's have a conversation with them. But the family needs to be involved along the way. Are students repeating that harm-causing behavior? So if someone is vandalizing something, are they doing it again and again? Or are they done with it after that first restorative justice harm restoring process? And our students are engaging in other harm-causing behavior. So maybe they vandalize one day, but the next day, are they coming to school and not having any harm-causing behavior? Or maybe they're bullying the next day, right? Like, these are things that we want to look at, making sure that this restorative justice practice is actually helping students develop their social emotional learning for like how their actions impact their community, and they're not doing it again. So these are two practices for a school to adapt to help students in developing some social emotional competencies. So the morning meetings and the reflection activities. These will really help build a community and help students build a sense of responsibility for their own community and accountability within their own community. Here's the work referenced throughout this project to help me develop this framework for social emotional learning within a school. Thank you for your time.